Hello everyone, I'm going to be reviewing the OSSC 1.6 with version 0.9 firmware today in the context of using it to actually stream original hardware onto platforms such as Twitch or to record to upload onto places like YouTube. I'm guessing if you're on this video you're already familiar with an OSSC and you just want to know if it's worth buying, how complicated it is to use, and obviously some examples of how good the output is when you go to record or stream. So in this video I am going to be using a Mega Drive Model 2 in a couple of games, a PlayStation 2 Fat Model to play some PS1 and PS2 games, a Wii to play some Gamecube games, and a Dreamcast as well, which will use the VGA input. And you can see just how amazing a Dreamcast actually is through one of these. But either way, as a brief overview, the goal of this OSSC is to simply upscale, turn the analog signal coming in from these older consoles into a digital signal that capture cards and most modern TVs can interpret. So some full transparency right at the start. Although this is a review on the OSSC, it is important to know that not all capture cards seem to like it, and not all monitors and TVs seem to like some of the outputs of an OSSC either. There's a big telly behind me there that although the OSSC does work on it, quite often if I go over a line 2x it doesn't like it, and generally the better pictures are in line 4x and 5x. So the capture card I use that works perfectly with it is an Elgato HD60S Plus, and it's important to get that exact model because it is very different to the same model 60S that doesn't have the Plus. And the monitor I'm using is a ViewSonic VX3276 MHD2. I've got the 2K versions, but I do believe that the 1K and I think that even the 4K work really well. So even with an OSSC, it's not guaranteed to get brilliant results, and I suppose that is an instant criticism on using it for streaming and game capturing, is that if you don't have other things perfectly that plug from the OSSC forward, you may be disappointed. So I would recommend the HD60S Plus, and I would recommend this monitor. It's not the most expensive monitor, but there are plenty of other monitors. It's well worth researching around when it comes to monitors because it is really important. So just for clarity, I'll be using an HD60S Plus and the ViewSonic monitor to get the output. However, when it comes to streaming and even recording, it's done through OBS. So generally when I've been playing some long plays, what I'm actually looking at when I'm playing isn't actually the same thing as what people are actually watching on YouTube. It's actually much better on the recording and the stream than it is from what I'm looking at it, because the resolution is much smaller and so on. So a brief overview here. So you've got these inputs here. The first one is the VGA. Generally I use it with Dreamcast because I find it superior to component. And then you've got composite or component here. You can see there's only got 3 holes, so when you use component you will need one of these jacks if you want to get the audio. If you don't, you won't get any sound, so it's really important. These 2 holes here, this one is the audio when you use component, and this is the audio when you use a VGA. You've also got SCART, which is not as good as the component, so only use it if you really cannot afford, or you just don't want to use one of these cables, or you just want to plug all consoles into the OSSC as much as without having to take cables in and out. And you've got the HDMI out there that goes into the capture card or straight into your monitor if you're not interested in streaming. And you've got this LED display, which I'll show a little bit later. It looks a little bit cheap, I suppose, a bit amateur electronics, but it is very sturdy. It's very strong. If you drop it, it's not going to break. So there are the inputs, and I'm just about to set it up, and I'll start with the Mega Drive. And you've also got a micro SD slot here. The only time I've ever used that is for firmware updates. I don't think it does anything else other than actually upload other people's profiles or settings. So for example, you'll see in the menu, in the complicated menus, that you can change an awful lot of things in an OSSC, but if you would rather rely on what other people have done and they've said they've got good results from, you can download, it looks like a script, and you can upload it to this and it will just appear in OSSC, and you can use the settings that they've done. But I must say that if you were to get this right out of the box, plug your consoles in and play, generally the picture is already pretty good, but it does have a high amount of customization if you wanted to go down that road. Not sure if I would recommend it, because sometimes you can spend hours trying to get a picture right, but really the picture doesn't really change outside of how many lines you're gonna double it. And that's pretty much the overview. So I'm gonna now start plugging some of my consoles in, and I'll go through them one by one, and you can see the end result of all of them. So here is the setup here. I've got my original PlayStation 2, my Mac, which has the input here, and that's end up what your user is going to see. And this is the ViewSonic monitor, showing what I'm going to be looking at in full screen. And you'll notice when I start playing the games how the quality does differ. Now, to show you exactly how this has been set up, I've got retro gaming cables, quality component cables plugged in here, the audio adapter in here, which then links into the HD60 Elgato here, and then into the back of the monitor. So I'm going to start playing, and I'm going to show you the recorded footage. As I said, this is a review of how the OSSC handles it for streaming. So now I'm going to capture some footage with a PS2. I've got 3 games here: The Thing, Metal Gear Solid 2 and Grand Theft Auto 3, to give 3 different examples of the results and what it sort of looks like if you were to stream with them. So while The Thing loads up, I'll just load up the settings on the OSSC so you can see how I got the output. Let's just change resolution there. So it comes off the screen and I have no idea why. Looks like the game tries to change the resolution a couple of times before it actually settles. So you can see that I've chosen line 4, Bob de-interlace, because the signal is interlaced. If I change it to line 3x interlaced, it doesn't do it very well. And Bob de-interlace again on line 2. It's just in the middle of loading a different scene. So, what you if you're watching this in a PAL region, what you should definitely check out is to see if it's got an optional 60Hz mode, because that does make the game a little bit smoother. And obviously, because it's a larger resolution than the PlayStation 1, you can do an awful lot of this, and it doesn't go quite as blurry on OBS. Completely up to you how you do it, because obviously a lot of people would have a chat on the right hand side, something along those lines, and maybe some other things that they're speedrunning, they have their timings, so it's completely up to you. I'm just going to load a game because I recently completed this game, painful game to play. Bit of a separate point there, but I always wanted to play The Thing because I really enjoy the films, but the game is not as enjoyable as you get further along into the game. But it's a decent game to show for people looking to get an OSSC for streaming, just because it's got a 60Hz mode in the PAL region, which is not that common for PlayStation anyway. So you can see the loading screen looks absolutely superb. You can barely see any of the pixels, and this is what the game looks like. This game is out on PC, so if you were going to stream this game, you would probably choose that version. You can see there different types of lighting available. and so on. So that is the first game. That's what menus look like, blah blah blah. Clearly see, captures the audio as well. Right. Next is one of the all-time best games ever made, Metal Gear Solid 2. Now the interesting thing about this is obviously there is now a HD remaster of this game. So if you really wanted to stream it, there is a much easier way to do it and play the actual, legitimate original game. But it's a good way to show off what the OSSC can do to upscaling. Because this game really looked fantastic when it first came out. You can see crystal clear menus there on OBS. It's not too bad on my monitor either. And this game is running at 50 Hz. I'm pretty sure there's no option. Controls. There is no option for 60 Hz, I don't think, in the PAL region.
Please.
Right, I will let the
Action
opening
level selected.
cinematic load while
Metal
I show
Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty will now begin.
a couple
Please
of
enjoy.
the options menus here. So if anyone's wondering what my screen is a little bit dark, then there's an option called pre-ADC gain.
The Hudson River, 2 years ago.
If I can
We had classified intelligence that a new type of Metal Gear was scheduled for transport. The whole thing stank, but our noses have been out in the cold too long.
Pre-ADC gain here. So it's set to 8, but you can really crank up the brightness here. I will go to actual in-game footage for you to see the actual difference.
This is Snake. Do you read me, Otacon?
Loud and clear, Snake.
Kept you waiting, huh?
Skip all this.
All right, let's look at your gear.
Perhaps this was a terrible game to use just because of this, but we will get there in the end.
We need to get...
Here we go. So this is what the game looks like, and as you can see, it is very close to the HD remaster when it comes to what you're actually seeing on stream. Obviously, like I've always said, what I'm seeing on my screen is a little bit different, not as clear, but it is a bigger monitor and a smaller display. But as you can see, it is pretty... Christ. Just doomed now. Right, as you can see now, pre-ADC gain has made this a lot. As you can see, now hopefully I'll be left alone. You see, pre-ADC gain has arguably made it too bright. Number 8 is possibly the optimal. So we'll leave the Metal Gear Solid demo there. As you can see, it is absolutely amazing. And the OSSC has done a really good job. And the last game now for a demo is a classic Grand Theft Auto 3, another game that has had a bit of an update. And you can actually play on probably the superior PC, but you should be able to demonstrate again that the OSSC does an exceptional job when it comes to the PS2. The more modern the console goes, I think that the better job OSSC does, and you can really see the impact on the later consoles the most. PS2 isn't far off from just looking HD in my opinion. So this game came out in 2001, so quite old, and but early on in the PS2's life cycle, a year after it was released, more or less. Skip the scenes just to keep this video brief. But you can
I know a place on the edge of the red light district where we can lay low.
you can make your own mind up on what you think the OSSC has done to the original PS2 hardware on Grand Theft Auto 3. So this is the game in all its very, very original glory. So I'll get in the car. It looks absolutely amazing. And if you were to stream it, have a retro channel on Twitch or whatever, I think people would not complain about this. So I just went to check to see if there was any 60 Hz option. I don't think there is, but there was that widescreen. Doesn't seem to have actually done anything at all. But that is it. So to summarise, so my setup, the PS1, because I've been playing the PS1 games on this, is I've got quality component cables from RGB cables for this. If you used SCART or low quality component cables, it would not be this clear. It would probably be fine, but this is based on, I think, the best gear that's available for this setup. I'm in the PAL region, so the gameplay is in 50 Hz and a higher resolution. I think Americans are faster but less detailed. I've got a couple of other PS2 games, but I wanted to go through these consoles quite quickly. So do I think the OSSC does a good job of being able to line double, upscale, and make the picture viable for streaming? Well, I think yes, but I've also on the video given some proof of what it actually looks like. So if you had this setup and you were planning to stream PS2, this is what it would look like. If you're happy with this sort of look, then yeah, it's a winner. So there's a couple of things you can do here on OBS, so you can sort of reset a lot of things, and you can get OBS to just decide what they think is probably best. It's completely up to you how you do it. I've only just put that small little window there for demo purposes, so to speak. It does have de-interlacing OBS, but it's always disabled in this. If I was to enable it, it would look worse. I think the OSSC does it for you, so OBS doesn't have to do an awful lot, and OSSC does a much better job than okay, so if I preview scaling here, change it to output, change it to that, and then if I go to preview scaling and scale to window, it does that. nothing much special. But yeah, OSSC absolute winner when it comes to PS2 streaming. Really, I'm personally really happy with it. But again, you can make your own mind up. So now I'm going to flip to what the streamer is eventually going to, not the streamer, the viewer, either on Twitch or on YouTube, wherever you put your videos. And I've got some demo games I'm going to go through on the PlayStation 1, on the PlayStation 2, which is Resident Evil 2, Silent Hill, Mortal Kombat Trilogy, and Metal Gear Solid. There is a good reason I've picked these, because some of these have slightly different resolutions to most PlayStation 1 games, and you can see some of the drawbacks of the OSSC to be aware of. So I'm going to start with Resident Evil 2, because that is just a normal game that gives you no issues with resolution. It is 240p and 50 Hz because I live in a PAL region and this is original hardware. So I'm going to change the settings to my default PS1 settings to get the best out of them. Because this is an original PlayStation 2 fat version, there is an internal PlayStation 1 inside, so it's not emulation or anything like that. So this is displaying it as a PlayStation 1 would. So I'm just going to blitz through the gameplay very quickly, just so that you can see what it looks like. I'm going to run to the to Kendall's office because you can see a zoomed in pixelated picture, just so that you can pretty much just gauge for yourself what the quality that you're looking at in this recording, what the quality is if you went for this setup yourself. Considering it is a PlayStation 1 game, what I'm looking at my monitor isn't quite as good, but that doesn't really matter. It's good enough. The interesting thing about Resident Evil 2 is it actually is also on the Dreamcast and the Gamecube, so really if you were going to stream Resident Evil 2, I probably wouldn't recommend this version anyway, purely for that reason, because it is superior on other consoles. And this is a close-up shot, so heavily pixelated on my monitor, but
what are you
serviceable.
doing here?
And as you can see
from
the stream that you're looking at, this is absolutely fine. So that is the first game I'm going to go through. Absolutely no issue with that one. Next, somewhat of a faster moving game is Mortal Kombat Trilogy, and one of my favourite games growing up. I'm going to look for the case for Resident Evil 2 so we can put it back in. I haven't really mentioned audio for a while, but the audio is very good. Absolutely no complaints there with Resident Evil 2. Now to make this a little bit different, I'll just go into Mortal Kombat. So yeah, the marble effect in the stream recording bit is very good. I am playing as Scorpion.
Choose your destiny. Excellent.
So just so that you can see what is the output that I'm using, these are the settings I've got. So this one at the top here, 280p, is the one for Mortal Kombat, so you can change it like this. Obviously it shifts it around a little bit. To line 4, which is more full screen, but you can start to see the pixelated blurriness. Aligned 5x, which is the highest it will go, which is here, but you can see sort of the blurriness. So the optimal is line 2x, especially on these older consoles. So you could decide for yourself what you think of this, but if I move this around and make it bigger, that's up to you to decide. But I think line 2x is the optimal for PlayStation 1. So you can see a fast moving beat 'em up game, looks pretty great. So for PlayStation 1 so far, really good. Now I'm going to move to games that are slightly different. And so far I've been obviously really positive because it's worked out really well. The next game, Silent Hill, has a major flaw because of OSSC, and I will demonstrate why. So Silent Hill is a fantastic game, one of the best survival horror games ever made, probably. But it has a particular quirk that if you were to play when it originally came out on a CRT monitor, more or less, you would never have noticed this, because obviously the game was built for CRT monitors, but obviously now not many people want them because they're just so big and they're so expensive and they use so much power, and when you're streaming, you want to, quite a tidy sort of setup. So CRT isn't ideal, but there are purists out there that will do it. So we'll see. So the reason why Silent Hill and OSSC don't play well together, and never will, is because of something of changing resolutions when you go into a menu. So as you can see, this looks great, absolutely no problem at all, brilliant game, looks fantastic, but go into your menu and have this delay out. So it's 1, 2, 3, 2 to 3 second delay when you go into a menu while you're transitioning from the overworld into that menu. The game does not pause and you do get hit. So when I was playing this a while ago and there were monsters in the room and I wanted to go into my inventory to heal, I'd get a couple of hits. So OSSC doesn't have a buffer, a frame buffer, so changing resolutions it can't do in an instant like that. Normally when you play a PlayStation 1 game, it's 240p, it stays 240p. Silent Hill's menus are 480i, so when the PlayStation is changing the resolution, it tells the OSSC its resolution has changed, and it takes 2 to 3 seconds to adapt to that resolution. So to make this obviously a balanced review, it is fantastic, as you can see, and even Silent Hill looked fantastic, but unfortunately that resolution delay is unforgivable, and it probably means that if you were doing speed runs or challenge runs or something like that, then you probably wouldn't be able to use an OSSC with Silent Hill. You would have to emulate it pretty much. But it's not the fault of OSSC, it's the fault of how these old consoles worked back in the day. So it's not me saying that OSSC have done something bad in the design, it's purely that old tech and OSSC don't always play together, and it is a funny thing to do to have to change resolutions like that. And the last game I am going to play is Metal Gear Solid, because Metal Gear Solid's resolution is slightly higher than the normal game, so it's a little bit better looking than 240p, and it goes to 625i on the OSSC, but we will see what it looks like now. So some of the later games did do some different things with the resolutions. Metal Gear Solid was one of them, and Metal Gear Solid being obviously one of the better looking PlayStation 1 games ever made. So as you can see, that is pretty good. So I will start a new game. So as you can tell, that is absolutely superb, and it's now changed resolution once I'm in the game. So with this, again, you can change your options to whatever you like. But as you can see, the higher lines now start to look better. So even though Line 2 is still a game I would absolutely recommend, it's great. It's a stunning game. Stunning game when it came out, still a stunning game now.
This is Snake.
I'll skip all this just so that you can see what it looks like. But again, if you were streaming, you'd be, I'd imagine, pretty happy with this. This, on OBS, this looks as good as it did when it first came out, which is the whole point of OSSC. You know, it's not making it HD remaster, because that's impossible. It's trying to make it look as good as you remember it looking. If you remember, nobody ever really complained about the games the way they look then, we'll just complain about them now, because a lot of these games, if you were to plug them directly without an OSSC into a telly, they look absolutely woeful. But this looks amazing. I think you'll agree. And there's no resolution change when you change menus or go on anything like that, like Silent Hill does, also in Economy. So overall, when it comes to the PS1, the OSSC, in my opinion, is absolutely fantastic. I think you'll agree with what you're looking there. Considering I'm playing on original hardware, it's as good as it's ever looked. It looks as good, very close to what it looked like when it first came out. So, to conclude the review of OSSC, when it comes to a PS1, it pretty much gets top marks from me. The default settings work absolutely fine. Line 2X is pretty much great. It looks fantastic on OBS, which is the whole point of getting the OSSC for streaming for this review. Because plenty of people have reviewed the OSSC, but I wanted to do it with a different angle of how good is the OSSC when it comes to streaming or recording with original hardware. It does have a problem with Silent Hill, but a lot of them does. I think the FrameMeister may well be the only one that can handle it quite well. There is still a little bit of a delay with it, I think 1 second, but I don't think the FrameMeister makes the picture look as good as the OSSC, so it's a bit of a trade-off. Is it worth it buying it for just one game or a couple of games that also suffer from it? I don't think so, but considering I've played a beat-em-up, Mortal Kombat Trilogy, I've put Resident Evil 2 in, put Metal Gear Solid in, so I've gone from, very 1996 game, 1998, 1999, Silent Hill. It looks absolutely amazing. So, top marks when it comes to the PS1. So just to show my Dreamcast setup here, so there's the normal console. Here is the VGA cable that you will need to get a hold of. So audio does not come out of this cable, it comes out of these cables. So you'll need that audio jack that you still use for the PS2 and anything else with a component, but you will need to switch it from AV1 to A3 in to hear anything. So here we are. I'm going to boot up the Dreamcast, and included is Resident Evil 2. So I may as well do this, and then you can actually compare PS1 version of the Resident Evil 2 with Dreamcast, which is far superior. I don't know why it keeps doing this, I've set it a million times, but here you go, here's the menu. So it looks like it has been chopped off. So I'm gonna stretch it out. Oh no, I'm gonna change it to the Dreamcast settings. So you can actually see as a demo there what it looks like if you were to optimize or load up the profile of a PlayStation 2 but play the Dreamcast. It's not quite the same, especially since one uses component and the other one uses VGA. So because it's VGA, the signal is now progressive and not interlaced, and that's what makes it so much better. So this game is also clearer on my monitor, and not just for the benefit of people watching your stream. I'll just load it up easy. So 60 Hz and progressive signal if you're in PAL. Actually I think it might be the same anywhere. So in my opinion the Dreamcast was way before its time, simply for using VGA, because that means that at the time when this came out, around year 2000, you could actually plug it into a monitor and it would be able to handle it just fine. Just going to lower the microphone since it's picking up the game audio. Right. You can clearly see how much better the Dreamcast version is than the PlayStation 1, and just how much more the OSSC can do with this signal. So on my screen some things are actually a little bit blurry, but I'm looking at what OBS is capturing there and it's crystal clear. So now the Kendo office is where you can get a zoomed in picture and you can judge for yourself what you think of the quality of this is. So if you wanted to stream Dreamcast and you were interested in or potentially considering the OSSC,
What are you doing here?
this is what you could have on your stream here.
I'm a human.
I think I'll leave the demo there because I think that's more than enough. Absolutely brilliant. So that was an action game. Let's see if I've got something that is a little bit different gameplay. So I will show Sonic Adventure, which is a classic game, and Grandia 2 as well, which is an RPG. So hopefully, I think I've got a save file for Grandia, which means that I can just go straight into showing you what the game actually looks like, maybe a battle. Sonic Adventure, obviously, it's one of the best, not the best games ever, clearly, but certainly one of the earliest Dreamcast games, and a really good example of. So you can't show it at RGB, so you've got to put it on. So this class has RGB HV. There you go. So that's what cinematic looks like. Absolutely perfect and close enough to HD. So I'm only one game in, and I'm already saying to you, because the monitor has speakers. Anyway.
So select a file. Eventually do a review of the new Sonic monitor, the fiddly buttons on the back to change the Select a character.
Let's get him.
Director's cut. All modern consoles, so there is technically a better way to play on original hardware, but for purists out there, such as me, if I wanted it to actually play on an actual big monitor I'm using is actually on a console. I could do an awful lot.
Amy! Oh man! Where can she be?
I'll leave it there.
Sonic!
And I think one of the problems with the Dreamcast is because it was before its time. I don't think anyone was cared about VGA. I don't think an awful lot of people could actually utilise VGA at the time it was launched. And I think it's still got a bit of a cult following now. Plus, you know, it wasn't backed by as many game publishers as they would like, so the competitors, especially the PS2, simply had more and better games at the time, which led to its demise. But you can still buy them now, and you can still revisit the Dreamcast, and with an OSSC, you can make them as good as ever. So, gotta change that channel there to GBS. Grandia 2 is actually on the PS2 as well, but the Dreamcast is actually a better version. And on the side point, I've been talking a lot about VGA with the OSSC. Not every game can actually use VGA. I've got a couple of examples. Dino Crisis doesn't allow VGA from the top of my head, so always check. I actually have another game I will show after this to review the OSSC and Dreamcast properly and to really show it off. That reset there, didn't it? And it's Echo the Dolphin, one of the best looking games on the Dreamcast at the time. So that really probably would showcase what the OSSC can do much more than Grandia 2, Resident Evil 2, and Sega Adventure as well. So those I'll just get the game ready to put in. It's a fairly decent game, to be fair, Grandia 2. Not the most amazing game in the world. And it was competing up against things like Final Fantasy X on the PS2 at the time. So, you know, it definitely wasn't near the top, but it does have a certain charm to it. So this is what the game looks like, the world map. And I'm now on to the last boss. I was trying to see if I can get into a quick battle. If I can't, I'll turn off what I call it. This game quite a while ago now. Do one more of these orbs, and if there's no battle after that, I'll call it. Echoing. If I can't skip the dog, I'm just going to switch to...
Oh, foolish, piteous humans, accept your fate, accept the mercy of a perfect God. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
completely nuts. Woo! You better real.
I'll put Echo. But I think that looks pretty good. Really happy with that. So Echo the Dolphin, Defender in the Future is, I believe, the last Echo the Dolphin game. It is VGA compatible. Anyway, Echo the Dolphin is definitely one of the best looking games on the Sega Saturn. Quite a rare game as well. So it didn't get really released, so it's original on Dreamcast, so you would have to emulate it or get original hardware, but it would always be on this. A brilliant game, as is every more or less Echo, but this was stunning. So I'll just continue with an old game. But yeah, what do you think of those menus there? Pretty slick. Loading screen's the same. But because the game is set in the ocean and there's a lot of lighting effects and stuff like that, sometimes it's hard or easy to forget that this game was made in the year 2000. And this is what it looks like. This is obviously a Dreamcast game. It looks like this. Playing. So just demonstrates some lighting effects, and I think it's OSSC could do with the Dreamcast. The problem is I am feedback with VGA. I have got the HD60S capture card which is compatible with it. So there's a few pieces, but the OSSC does play a really part in making the picture. So this is my review of the OSSC to stream Dreamcast games is extremely positive. I would generally give it 10 out of 10. It has made really old games look absolutely amazing, and I think you really feel the difference with a Dreamcast being upscale than say a PS1 or a PS2 or a Mega Drive. So what I mean by that is you feel the benefits of the OSSC from the Dreamcast a lot more than the others. So to say that the others aren't as good, but the Dreamcast, because of the VGA giving you a progressive picture and 60 Hz, which is not common or not the norm in PAL regions. The OSSC Dreamcast is probably the best partnership I've got all over the consoles. So yeah, absolutely amazing. I highly recommend OSSC for streaming Dreamcast. Now for the Wii. So I've already booted it up. I use component cables into the OSSC. Wouldn't recommend anything else. I don't have actually that many Wii games to really demo. But I'm going to start with just one game on the Wii, which is Sonic and the Black Knight. And then I'm going to go to the Gamecube games. So the first thing is, this is not an HD console. It is a progressive signal, but it's not HD. But if you look at the stream, it is, well, you would be convinced that that was actually a HD game. So a couple of minutes, or a couple of seconds rather, of a cinematic here. Volume up on the game slightly, the volume up on the microphone a little bit more. So that cinematic is you probably think that is HD, but it really isn't. But I'm going to try and go to the... Oh yeah. I don't play Wii often, as you can probably imagine. But this is just to demonstrate that OSSC has a really big part to play as well if you wanted to stream Wii games. So there's a few Metroid games on the Wii, the Zeldas, and this is what it looks like. As close, pretty good. Obviously it does send a better signal than Gamecube on PlayStation 2 and the previous gen, but again it's not HD. To be honest, this isn't really a great game. I only got it because my son quite likes Sonic and it was cheap. But yeah, if you wanted to stream Wii using an OSSC into a capture card, this is the sort of quality that you would expect, which is pretty superb, to be honest. I've had enough of that now. Time to put the Gamecube games on, because I think this is where a lot of the games shine. So the original Wii's had a built-in Gamecube, so it's not emulation. Similar to the original fat PS2s, it plays PlayStation 1 games as a PlayStation 1, so it is original hardware. And it plays them exactly like they would, so even though the Wii, like you've just seen with Sonic there, can play a progressive signal, the Gamecubes don't. So I'm going to use a flipping controller. I have put it in the wrong way. Now, bit of a word in advance, I've already tested this before I started recording it, and yeah, it is very good. Very impressive. And the thing about the Resident Evil game I'm going to demo, the remake, is it has a HD remaster that most people have probably played by now on the big consoles. So when I show you what Resident Evil remake on the Gamecube looks with an OSSC, you'll be surprised at how close to the actual official HD remaster really looks. And by making direct comparisons like that, it's much easier to just show off just how good the OSSC is. So I'll just do this just to get through. And the other game I'm going to show is Metal Gear Solid, the Twin Snakes. So I'm just going to check my settings because it's loading on the Wii. It is not technically a GameCube. So it is a 480 Ti 5 and it's for line 4. So that is pretty much as high as it goes. Most tellies can natively handle line 2, but I think a lot of the magic is actually in the higher lines. So this is an interlaced signal as opposed to the progressive. I should have left that cutscene going, because that would have shown the detail of the characters. But I will go to, oh, there goes the scene here. So yeah, absolutely just as very close to the HD remaster. So a quick thing I'm going to show you is just scan lines, optional, but you can see the difference here that adding scan lines does. I actually prefer it without, I prefer it on auto, and here it is. This is what the original Resident Evil remake looks like when you double the line. And this is the lighting, absolutely amazing. If I wanted to play this game or stream it, I probably would play the HD remaster, to be fair, but this is just a tech demo, just to show how close to actual HD the OSSC can make it. Right, that's the end of that demo, and that's the final game here. I am gonna play Twin Snakes. You can see I'm a Metal Gear Solid and Resident Evil fan. So Metal Gear Solid is a fan. Twin Snakes is a GameCube exclusive that remained a GameCube exclusive. So Resident Evil 1 on the GameCube at the time was a GameCube exclusive. Obviously isn't anymore, but the Twin Snakes did continue to be one. So it wasn't ported anywhere else. So if you're a Metal Gear Solid fan, you probably will have had to have owned a GameCube back in the day, simply for this. Same with Resident Evil. If it wasn't for Resident Evil, I would never have got a GameCube in the first place. When they first came out, obviously I sold it way back when it came to getting all the retro games back. I opted for a Wii instead because then I can still play GameCube, but I've got the option to actually play Wii games if I wanted to. So, crisp menus. I've already checked, there is no... I've got no save. Oh no, that's not, is it? So there is no option for 60 Hz on this game, unfortunately. And again, it is a interlaced signal at 625, whereas Resident Evil, because it was 60 Hz, it was a lower resolution. So what you're seeing on Twin Snakes here is actually a higher resolution than Resident Evil, but a completely different signal. P is better. Here it is. Amazing. So there's... Hold on. So that is it. I'm not sure how to get to the codec. Must be missing something. Oh, there you go. Anyway, so to summarise, the OSSC does an amazing job with the GameCube. Gets the Resident Evil games, or Resident Evil Remake, really close to the HD remaster. The Wii at nearly HD becomes even closer to being HD, and it is pretty amazing. It's the same story with every console, really, as the GameCube and PS2. It does an amazing job of it, and this is another example of a console that you can see the exact same setup between multiple consoles and a monitor for yourself. But I highly recommend it. So now for the Mega Drive, so just to show I'm not emulating and just pushing the OSSC, here is my Model 2 linked to the OSSC, and you can see the settings there. Here's my ViewSonic monitor and just how amazing that looks. And behind is just the setup here, so it is just a simple SCART lead, then into the Elgato card, and then into the monitor. Okay, so now that you've seen the setup, if you were to stream, this is what it will look like with an OSSC, with a Model 2 in PAL. So I'll just play through a couple of Mega Drive games, but of all the consoles of the OSSC benefits, I would say the Mega Drive is up there, is possibly the one that gets the most amount of benefit. This looks, and I had this when it originally came out in 1992, as good, if not better, than what it was at the time. It is unbelievable. I have a Mega SG, and I can honestly say that using original hardware with an OSSC is as good as a Mega SG. Although I'd probably say the Mega SG is definitely worth it. That's why I actually got one. Purely because you can actually put anything in there and it will play, can't you? It's just one cable HDMI to the back of the screen. So, quick demo of Streets of Rage, and yeah, this is as good as if you download it in the PlayStation Store, or whatever you can get it from. So, that is Streets of Rage 2. The next game I am going to show off is the original Sonic & Knuckles, linked in to Sonic 3. Now, sometimes these can be a little bit temperamental, where my Sonic & Knuckles cartridge doesn't actually recognise Sonic 3, but we'll see how we get on. And then finally, I'm going to showcase Mortal Kombat 2, so a beat 'em up. So if it hasn't loaded now, it's because the cartridge isn't quite in right, and that's why there is a black screen. That is a very old console, and another reason why I have, there we go, an American SG to avoid these sort of things. Here we go. Sonic 3 and Knuckles has come up, so, and look at that main menu, absolutely crisp. It's the same as my screen, and I've got save files here. And I'm going to go to the last level, just so you can see, and yeah, unbelievable quality. Fantastic game as well. So I'm not going to play this for too long because I think you get the gist that this game looks absolutely amazing on this console. Tough level as well. I think he is eventually kind of wins. Said I was finished playing this, but it's just a great game. Amazing. So, beat 'em up, original Mortal Kombat 2, just to show what a beat 'em up would look like. But I think you know the answer to that. It's going to look really good. Will the game work first time? Nope. Yes. This is a great game as well. So you can make your own mind. I can't do the spear throw. I'm sure it's just back to back. Whatever. So, final thoughts on using the OSSC to stream original hardware Mega Drive. Again, it's a 10 out of 10. If anything, if I could give it an 11 out of 10, I'd change my previous score of 10 out of 10 to 9, I would, purely because I felt that the OSSC showed off just how good it can upscale and line double on a Mega Drive than it did on more modern consoles such as the PS2 and the Gamecube. On the screen I am looking at, the Mega Drive looked better. It wasn't stretched whatsoever. It looked amazing, as good as a Mega SG, and the stream quality is extremely clear as well. So yeah, the OSSC does an impeccable job of original hardware with Mega Drive. So as a review, yeah, highly recommend it.